Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to explain some terms and concepts in Jean Aitchison's linguistics. The contents of this video include Jean Aitchison's linguistics, what is linguistics, linguist, how does linguistics differ from traditional grammar, and we are going to explain the scope of linguistics. So just to start with, Jean Aitchison is a professor of language and communication, Faculty of English Language and Literature at Oxford University. She is also a fellow of Worcester College. Some of her main books are New Media Language, Words in the Mind, Language Change. What is linguistics? Linguistics is the scientific study of language. And within this definition, we have 3 points to explain: scientific, study, and language. And how is linguistics scientific? Linguistics is scientific because it is objective, experimental, and evidential. We say that linguistics, or the study of language, is objective when it's not built on the decisions and opinions of the scholar. It's also experimental by using some tools and devices when studying language. For example, we can use the Phonetics and Phonology Lab to study the phonemic system of the English language. Also, linguistics is evidential when we do have data to prove or to provide an evidence for our study. So linguistics could be scientific when it's objective, experimental, and evidential. Linguistics is a study. It's not only description, it's not only analysis or discovery of language. It's a study because it's an activity of learning or gaining knowledge. Linguistics also is the scientific study of language. It's not the scientific study of, for example, numbers, and then it's going to be mathematics. It's not the scientific study of only the phonemic system. It's going to be phonetics. Linguistics is the study of the system of sign we use to communicate. And sign here means any word or facial expression or gesture we use in order to communicate. So linguistics is the objective, experimental, and evidential activity of learning or gaining knowledge of the system of sign we use in order to communicate. Now, the linguist is a scholar or a scientist who studies, describes, analyzes, and discovers language. A linguist is not necessarily a speaker of many languages. So a linguist could be a speaker of only one language, that the language he is studying. A linguist is not necessarily a speaker of a particular language. So, for example, we speak Arabic and we can study the English language. The linguist is not necessarily analyzing human language. We can analyze, for example, animal language. We can analyze, bees dancing, so on and so forth. Now, how does linguistics differ from traditional grammar? 200, 300 years ago, the study of language was in the form of rules, and grammarians at the time, they put rules on how to use the English language or how to use the Latin language. And at that time, it was prescriptive study of language rather than descriptive. And when we say that traditional grammar is prescriptive, because grammarians at that time, they did prescribe rules on how to use the Latin language. And they say, for example, don't start or don't split infinitive, don't end the sentence with a preposition, so on and so forth. Linguistics nowadays is descriptive. That is, it's concerned with what is said, not what should be said. It describes language as it is. So linguistics does not prescribing rules on how to use the English language. Linguistics is concerned with the spoken form of language. This doesn't mean that it's concerned only with the spoken form rather than the written form, but it's mainly or primarily concerned with the spoken form. Traditional grammar at that time, it was concerned with the written form, primarily with the written form rather than the spoken form. Also, linguistics is free from the framework of the Latin language. Traditional grammarians at that time, they formed the Latin language into rules on how to use the language, on how to use the grammar of language. Linguistics nowadays, it does not force the language into any of these rules. For example, the split of to infinitive or ending a sentence with a preposition. The scope of linguistics. Within the scope of linguistics, we have two circles. We have the inner circle and the outer circle. And the question about the scope of linguistics means that where could we study language, or what to study within language? Is it only phonetics? Is it only syntax? Within linguistics, within language, we have a scope starting with from phonetics, and then phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. And all these branches of linguistics are within language itself. All these branches include the concept and features of language itself. So we can study phonetics, and then we are doing a linguistic study. Phonology is also a linguistic study. When we study the sentence structure, we're doing syntax, so it's also a branch of linguistics. However, we have an outer circle, that is the relationship between language and disciplines and fields outside language. So when we say, for example, there is a relationship between sociology and language, we refer to sociolinguistics. You know that society can affect the use of language. For example, the language we use in hospitals is different from the language we use in colleges and at homes. The language we use when we are happy is different from the language when we use when we are sad, and this is part of the psycholinguistics. Also, we can use the computers to access language or corpus. Anyway, there is a relationship between language and other disciplines and other fields. So we refer to the relationship between language and sociology as sociolinguistics. And sociolinguistics is the impact or influence of sociology on language. An example of this is the language we use at college is different from the language we use at home. The relationship between language and psychology is called psycholinguistics, and an example of this, the language we use when we are happy is different completely, or in some respect, from the language we use when we are sad or angry or something else. And then we need to talk about the historical linguistics or language change. Within language change, we have two main concepts, which are synchronic linguistics and diachronic linguistics. Synchronic linguistics is the study of language at a given time, or the geographical study of language. For example, the study of some discursive features in Obama's speeches. So when we do describe language at a given point in time, for example, an analysis of Twelfth Night, an analysis of George Yule book, an analysis, for example, of Shakespeare poems. We are doing a synchronic study of language, or we are doing synchronic linguistics. However, when we study a language change across time, for example, the study of the Shakespearean poems between 1606 and 1615, we are doing diachronic linguistics, which is the study of language change across time. Thank you very much, and please stay tuned for future works, and you can subscribe for upcoming videos. Thank you very much.